folks, as you may already know, Facebook, the Oversight Committee, gave a ruling today, and they're upholding Donald Trump's Facebook band. Donald Trump is in a band they play exclusively on Facebook Live, and everyone got tired of it. What do you think he would play?
I don't know. Yacht rock. Or like I could imagine him being like Jam Bandy and just on and on and on and on and on.
I could imagine him being the world's laziest bass player.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those people who like really infuriates actual bass players because he just takes up the bass because he thinks it's easier. And he's like, I'm just gonna do this.
And he's like big.
Yeah. So I could picture him just being like the world's worst bassist. Like he just plays one note throughout and then thinks he's crushing it. Bass player in a yacht rock band. I think we nailed it. But anyway, it's not about Donald Trump's Facebook band, which he does have. It's about his Facebook ban, B-A-N. So they decided to uphold his ban, this Facebook Oversight Board. But here's what they had to say. And this is kind of interesting. So this is an article from Vox. Donald Trump will stay off Facebook for now, says Facebook's new Oversight Board. They decided this today. So in an unexpected decision, though, the Oversight Board insisted that it's not its job to decide, but it's just Facebook's. So wouldn't you have liked to have been a fly on the wall in that courtroom? Like, it's not really our decision. You're called the Oversight Board. Yeah, but that was just drunk during the weekend. We don't really. It's just a thing, but that's not it's just up to Mark Zuckerberg.
An extra title, just for LinkedIn. Yeah.
There are nearly 3 billion people on Facebook. About 2.8 billion people use Facebook. Most people use it as a news feed or use it as a way to get information. And here they are openly telling us they have no process whatsoever when it comes to content.
Probably like the most transparent they've ever been about that.
Right? And unintentionally. Like they're basically saying, it's not, we don't know who it's up to. It's not really up to anybody. So not only are you asking something of us we're totally unqualified to do, but we have no process for it anyway. I see no problem here.
Yeah.
So here's Fight for the Future statement. And I think Fight for the Future, I think you all nailed it. I think this is, in my opinion, the only summary of this whole thing that anyone needs to read, and it hits every point. So here, focusing on Trump's ban is missing the point. Facebook's business model is incompatible with democracy and human rights. So today, the Facebook Oversight Board largely upheld the company's ban on Donald Trump, while cautioning that it was not appropriate for Facebook to impose the indeterminate and standardless penalty of indefinite suspension. So here's the statement from Evan Greer, Deputy Director for Fight for the Future. Facebook's surveillance capitalist business model is fundamentally incompatible with human rights. Its monopoly power is fundamentally incompatible with democracy and freedom of expression. When we focus on these individual high-profile moderation decisions like Trump, we are utterly missing the point. Big tech's harms are rooted in their practices of data harvesting and algorithmic manipulation. The vast majority of people who are silenced by big tech are not former presidents or celebrities. They are marginalized people, sex workers, politically active Muslims who live outside the U.S. We can go back and forth all day about where the line should be drawn, but simply demanding more and faster removal of content will not address the very real harms we are seeing. It's quite telling that Facebook refused to answer several questions of the Oversight Board's questions about its algorithms and actual design decisions. We need to strike at the root of the problem, break big tech giants, ban surveillance advertising and non-transparent algorithmic manipulation, and fight for policies that address this parasitic business model while preserving the transformative and democratizing power of the internet as a powerful tool for social movements working for justice and liberation. I feel like that sums it up. That pretty much sums it up. This is what they're really doing. They have no qualifications to be doing the thing that we're talking about. And usually it's marginalized people who are affected by this sort of thing. And what we need are policies that meet the moment. I've talked to Evan about this, but I want to pose this question to you. Do you think it's time for a real digital Bill of Rights? And is such a thing even possible?
I mean, it's absolutely time. We've, I think, for a handful of years been kind of building the plane as we've been flying it, or whatever the language is, that, we don't have policies in place that actually are protecting people. These companies have been building, getting bigger and bigger, getting more and more power, and that's what is being protected so far. It's not about the people, and people are being hurt. I mean, I think these examples that Evan called out about, the people who are actually being silenced on these platforms are, really key, that it's people who rely on them for their well-being, for their livelihood, to, organize. We've heard from tons in the past year of Black Lives Matter activists who've been silenced on social media platforms like Facebook. And so it's putting these people in real harm. And then we focus on the Trumps of the world because it's a big deal. But, even when that happened, that was a political calculation on Facebook's part, and a profit calculation where they determined that, it would not hurt their bottom line and it would help them politically to bump him off. So yes, I mean, we need to be passing legislation and focusing on some potential, digital rights opportunities that will limit censorship, that will get rid of, the power of these tech giants, that will get rid of the surveillance advertising and other surveillance tools that are being used on these platforms, that will protect people's data and allow them to maintain some level of privacy. I mean, it's way past time. And, I think the problem that we see is that these companies just have so much power, especially in the halls of Congress, that they've been blocking it or intervening for so many years, despite efforts to move some of this sort of protection forward.
Well, and it's remarkable, like, when you really just take a step back and look big picture, and y'all at Fight for the Future, you deal with this on a daily basis. It's why organizations like yours need to exist. We're at this very interesting moment in time where technology is way out here and the law is like a couple miles back there, and they're on foot. And, when you look around, even at 99% of our politicians, actually, you know what? I'll say 100% of our politicians, pretty much, for the most part, they fall into two categories. Either they don't understand the internet or they can't handle the internet, i.e. Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that's a lot of our elected officials. I know there's a few who do some good things on digital rights, and that's great. But it's very few and far between, at least.
And they mostly rely on their younger staffers to help get them up to speed on how these things really work.
Totally. Well, it comes down to just, and that's why it's so frustrating, because look, all you need to do are listen to the right people. I'm not an expert on anything, but all it takes is caring about these issues, actually reading a thing every now and again. Why am I against repealing Section 230? Well, for a number of reasons. One of the big ones, I actually read the frickin' thing. I read the frickin' thing and realized that repealing this would lead to a lot of unintended consequences that would not be good. And we're already seeing that. In fact, let's go back to this for a minute, because y'all addressed that in here. Facebook is actively trying to solidify its monopoly power by pushing for false solutions, like weak privacy legislation that protects their data harvesting business model, and changes to Section 230 that would be devastating for freedom of expression while crushing Facebook's competition from smaller companies and websites. You people out there who think that Section 230 is just the thing protecting social media companies, it's not. There's a lot more to it than that. And repealing it would actually make Facebook even more powerful, because it would prohibit another Facebook from ever happening.
Exactly.
It's more important than ever that we look at issues like content moderation and platform power in an intersectional way, which I think is a very, very nice way of saying people who are actually qualified to be making these decisions should be making them. The most dangerous thing that could happen right now is that the public accepts the idea that lawmakers should just do anything about big tech. We need thoughtful policies that actually address harms, not more partisan dunking and working of the refs. Fight for the Future opposes reckless changes to Section 230 that could harm marginalized communities and human rights. We support federal data privacy legislation, robust antitrust enforcement, the restoration of net neutrality. Those are all good.
Yeah.
Those are right.
And it was a couple weeks ago, I think, before a congressional hearing on Section 230 when Mark Zuckerberg came out and said he was open to changes. And similarly, of course he is. They will survive. Facebook is the biggest game out there. They'll be able to, withstand potential legal challenges. They'll be able to silence content that might get them in trouble. And, it'll be the smaller platforms or the ones that aren't even out there yet that we need that won't be able to exist any longer because they won't be able to deal with the kind of financial burden and legal burden of dealing with having to take responsibility for all the content on their page. So,
right.
Yeah.
And a quick refresher. I mean, Evan has been on the show several times. We've dissected Section 230, but like just a quick refresher for everybody. It's Section 230 is basically the policy that upholds free speech on the internet, and it pertains to all users. It pertains to you as a user, me as a user. It pertains to comment sections. It pertains to classifieds. It pertains to everything. It doesn't just pertain to social media platforms. So if you alter this legislation, you're going to have a lot of unintended consequences, and we've already seen it. So yeah, I think in closing here on the Facebook thing, I think Fight for the Future nails it. By focusing on just Trump, you're missing the big picture. And here they are openly admitting they have no process. There's no process. You're asking Facebook to just determine what is and isn't acceptable content, what is and isn't news. And not only are they totally unqualified to do that, but they have no process on how it's supposed to work. They just pass the buck. The oversight committee doesn't oversee anything. Apparently, they don't oversee. I would have loved to have been in that courtroom. There had to have been someone in that courtroom who, at the very least, under their breath, muttered, "What the fuck?" Like there had to have been at least one person. Yeah. There should have been a collective. What the fuck? It should have been a collective. And you're allowed to cuss here, but you do not have to. But.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and